Hello. Today I'm going to share a method you can use to create user interface sounds from almost any sound source. The reason I think this can work with almost any sound is because the method is so transformative it almost doesn't matter what the original sound was. I find this process to be easiest to do in a spectral editor, so I'll be doing it in iZotope RX. The process I'm going to use doesn't really have any strict rules, it's more about just applying the processing that feels right. To start with, find a sound you want to use as the basis. I'm going to use a fairly poor recording I took of some goldfinches with also some traffic noise in the background. To start with, I want to trim the sound down a lot. Now let's try adding a short tick sound to the start of it. One way to do this is by normalizing a very short section. I like to set this to -3 dB. I've also assigned the N key on my keyboard to apply normalization to this value. It's also worth noting that for this to do anything, the normalization value has to be louder than the peak volume of your sound. And if that is the case, then you can apply gain to the whole sound using the gain module. So let's select a small area. If we play the sound now, it will have a short burst of noise. It's a bit dull sounding. So what I'm going to do here is open up an EQ and fairly carelessly just boost a load of high end. I also just normalize the whole file to bring the volume down from clipping. What we could do is we could add a sort of delay effect by selecting certain parts of this and then copying them and pasting them. At this point, I want to silence the latter portion of the sound because it's not really going to help us. I have that assigned to Shift S. The reason I'm not deleting that whole area is because it means if we loop the sound, it will have a bit of space, which allows us to kind of process the sound. I'll trim the start as well. A good thing to do now is load up a VST plugin. I like to use Snap Heap because we can use it to apply all sorts of different processing. For example, we could try a transient shaper on the whole thing. Let's boost some attack and reduce sustain a bit. Every now and then, the process I'm applying is pushing it past the point of clipping. I'm not too concerned about this as long as it sounds good, basically. So if it does reach that point, I'm typically pressing N again to normalize the whole sound. What we could do now is maybe try a frequency shifter. And I'm going to apply this to only part of the sound. So let's select this. I'll drag it down maybe. And move it a bit. You can render it multiple times to apply the process repeatedly. We could also try phase distortion as a fun one. I'm going to make this last sound a bit louder. And you can do this just by adding the gain module. I want it to sound a bit faster, so I'm going to cut out this small area. I'm also going to trim the start so it also has a sharper transient. It's still got a bit of a kind of low thump to it, which I'm not sure about, so I'm going to just distort that low bit. We could apply some EQ to this as well. We can also apply EQ to just specific parts of the sound, so just the later bit. We could apply a chorus just to the low end. At this point, I'll continue to experiment with the methods I've mentioned. Here's the final sound. And here are a few more examples of sounds I've made using this method. Thanks for watching.